Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Daily Drum for this Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. I'm Alec Green in for Harold Fisher tonight. Harold is taking some time off and NBC4 awaits tomorrow my arrival back to work, but it is so wonderful to be able to talk about an important topic. It's all about getting our affairs in order. Very important stuff here. The past few months really have taught many of us some real eye-opening lessons, from job losses to program cuts, the federal government upheaval as that has many families scrambling and wondering what is next. And my guest this evening has some advice on how to manage money woes when they come your way. And for a lot of people, this is real life and happening right now. Life is lifing. Plus, we're going to preview a big event coming up this weekend where you can really take advantage of some expert advice to guide you on your legal, your financial, and end of life planning, something that we all need to do. So my guest this evening is Michelle Singletary, who is a nationally syndicated personal finance columnist with the Washington Post, a frequent guest on this program and an expert in her field. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing some expertise tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so we know that you've been writing and on what's happened in the last couple of months, these latest financial matters for weeks, actually. And of course, this has been your life's work. This is certainly one of the most trying times for so many families here in the DMV. This is a government town, the DMV. So many African Americans are living their lives as government workers and really making a great living for themselves. I want to begin with some basic financial do's and don'ts, as so many people feel the uncertainty of these times. What are the first financial steps that someone should take immediately after losing their job, or if they're feeling at risk that they could lose their job on any given week?
Yeah. Well, it's really a two-step process. First of all, take care of your mental health. If you still have access to your healthcare, which you should, until you run out of that care, talk to a mental health professional, because losing your job can create a lot of grief for people. They tend to sometimes shut down. And so I need you to take care of yourself, particularly if you're married or you've got kids or you're a caregiver. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is you need to triage your financial situation. If you don't have a lot in savings, this is the time to say, I can pay this, I can't pay that. For example, you might have a lot of credit card debt, but you don't have enough to cover that and pay your mortgage or your rent. You're going to prioritize the roof over your head. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to tell you to shirk your responsibilities, but then you call your credit card lender and say, I lost my job. I'm a federal worker. I cannot pay this, not even the minimum payment. Can you give me some time to pay this? Can you pause my payments? The debt might grow, right? But when it's a crisis situation, you have to act like when you're in an emergency room, they take care of the most serious patients. That's what you have to do with your money. And then thirdly, if you're on that cusp, and there's a lot of people who are not sure, right? They think they might be fired. They're not sure. If you're in that situation, you need to act as if you've almost lost your job if you haven't already. That means that you just start cutting everything. You concentrate on not accumulating more debt and maybe aggressively trying to pay off debt without touching too much of your savings. Because right now, cash is king if you are a federal worker.
I mean, and you know this better than most. Studies show that most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you're already struggling, and then you have a job loss that comes all of a sudden, and people are feeling the whiplash effect of that. Given the 3 points that you made, what advice do you have for people who really are living paycheck to paycheck and feeling overwhelmed right now by their debt and their job loss at the same time? Those folks are really underwater.
Yeah, you know, you have to prioritize. If you can change your situation in which the most amount of your money goes towards, which is usually housing. If
Yeah.
there's an opportunity for, like, say your lease is coming up, don't renew that lease. Try to find some other housing situation. And I know people don't want to hear that. And they think, well, you know, what is she talking about? But I'm telling you, folks, I have worked with individuals year after year who are in this situation. They maybe not a federal worker, but they've lost their job. And I said, listen, you can't afford that apartment. Call anybody that you know. If you got relatives in the area, call them, friends, auntie, godmother, whoever, and say, I cannot afford this house or this apartment. Can I come live with you until I get myself situated? You'd be surprised how many people will step up and say, of course. I've done that myself. My husband and I have done that. So I'm not telling you anything that I haven't done myself. We have taken in relatives who needed a financial break.
Yeah.
And we also didn't charge them rent while they got to get themselves together. Now, if that person needs the money, okay. But if you are that person trying to, you know, taking someone in, I would encourage you to say, you don't have to pay rent. Use that money to save so that when it's time for you to go, you'll have the money to move or to pay off debt or get yourself, you know, together while you look for another job.
And this is perfect timing because there is an upcoming event this weekend that a lot of folks can take advantage of called Ask a Professional, where you will get your affairs in order or can begin to get some information on your leadership, your financials, your end of life planning. We're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. Consumer confidence kind of drives our lives, our spending, our habits, our feeling about things, despite the fact that the economy still looks pretty stable, although we're waiting on these tariffs to kick in April 2nd and that sort of thing. Kind of talk about what you're seeing and hearing in terms on a larger scale about consumer confidence right now and how people are really behaving as a whole, or what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, there's really two things going on. The basic economy, businesses, they're selling services and making things like that.
Right.
It's solid, right? And we ought to be really grateful for that. We just came out of a pandemic where we could have been in a recession. And we had inflation as high as 9% a couple of years ago. And it's now down to under 2%, not under 2%, around 2%. And so, you know, we were like breathing like, oh, we made it through. And then we had a new administration who is, you know, I was going to say, or I better not say that, but is intent on imposing these tariffs and creating trade wars, right? This is a manufactured thing. And because of that, you know, businesses are retracting a little bit. They're like, maybe we shouldn't hire people. We know that if the tariffs go into full effect, that the administration is talking about, a car is going to go up, all kinds of things are going to be more expensive. And so that's the macroeconomic thing, right? Micro, consumer spending drives our economy, but you personally can't be worried about that. And so what I'm telling people, if you are a federal worker, and this is anywhere in the country, not just in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and you are not sure, if I were a federal worker right now, I would not, no vacation. I'm canceling no home improvement unless my roof is leaking. I'm cutting back everything, you know, because you just don't know if you're going to have a job. And so you want to preserve that cash, particularly if you are in debt, or you were living paycheck to paycheck. Those who are adjacent to those federal jobs, contractors. I mean, I have a relative in my family who lost his contract job because of the threat of these tariffs. And so now they're in, you know, having to try to figure out what to do. We've got thousands of people in the job market right now. So if you got one job opening, there's a whole lot of people going to be competing for that job. And so if I sound alarmed, because I need to be alarmed, this is not a joke, y'all. And so you gotta, if you were just spending and not paying attention and eating out and things like that, you have to stop You've got to take an assessment. Now, if you are doing okay, like you're not connected to the federal government or any jobs with that, you might thinking, okay, I would still be cautious. My husband and I are really good money managers, but we had a major project that we were thinking about doing. And we were like, you know what? We're going to pause a little bit for a couple of reasons, just to see how things happen, because we may end up having to help some relatives who've lost their job.
And
But
I
also,
think about, and I
go
think
ahead.
about, Michelle, on that point, I think about people who may not be directly impacted by what's happening with these job losses, with these federal jobs being eradicated. But those people who own businesses, for example, you know, they're going to be impacted, because if you're saying, hey, you need to pull back, you need to stop spending, well, my business is being impacted as well. What's the advice for business owners out there? We know a lot of women in particular start businesses. They have a little side hustle. We know a lot of people, African Americans, run wonderful businesses, small businesses. How should they handle their finances right now?
The same way as everybody else. And
Yeah.
I get it, right? Like, I'm telling people not to do stuff that's going to impact some small businesses. But if you do hair, or you sell clothes, or you're in a district where you're used to federal workers coming in, you know, you, on the one hand, you must understand that they need to pull back. They may not be able to get their nails done or their hair done or buy the clothes that they used to do or eat out the way they do. That means that you now, as that small business, have to do the same thing. Maybe reduce hours. You know, you look at your own finances to see where you can cut if your business revenue goes down. I mean, you can see how interconnected we all are. But
Yeah.
honestly, everybody has to be in this situation a little bit selfish. What's best for me? I can't continue to support a business by eating out if I'm in jeopardy of losing my job. That's just reality.
Yeah,
And
it's wild what we're saying, because during the midst of all of this, I have gone out and I have seen restaurants packed, and I'm thinking, okay, well, people are not as concerned as you would think, but you never know what a person's situation is. Talk about the emergency fund. I mean, you have been preaching about having an emergency fund for years, as I have followed you. This right here is the time to start thinking about or getting your emergency fund together. Give us some tips on how we do that. How do we do
yes,
that?
I know, right? So I'm a woman of faith. And I always lean to Genesis and Joseph and Genesis. You know, the Joseph with the multicolored coat and all that. You know, there was 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And during those 7 years of plenty, what did he do? He saved. He saved. The scripture even says he saved so much he stopped counting. That's where you should be right now. And so if you're in a good position, you should be like Joseph. You should be saving to the point where there's so much in there, you'd be like, whoa, I don't need to count anymore, because the 7 years of famine is going to come, and it may not impact you.
Save. How do you do it? Now, give us the practicality of that. One,
So
two,
you
three.
look at what you're bringing home and you save first. You figure out, what can I shave off? What can I cut back to put that money into a savings account? And you just put it in a regular bank account. You're not going to be investing this money. Its job is to just sit in that bank account and be there when you need it. And that's how you do it. And so you got to do something called a budget. And when we're going to be talking about the conference, I'm going to be teaching on budgeting and the importance of budgeting. You know, the people I have the hardest time to budget is people who actually have money, because they feel like the money's always going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And guess what? When it's not there, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you need to be a Joseph. Right now, we all need to be Josephs. And in the end, he had enough for himself and his family. And that's what I'm talking about. I need you to be able to build that savings so that you can help yourself. And if you don't lose your job or in jeopardy, that you can then help others in the community.
You talked about your role and what you're planning to do at the Ask a Professional conference that's coming up this weekend. Tell us more about what people can expect. I mean, this thing is not brand new in the community, hosted at First Baptist Church of Glenarden. But right now, we really need to take advantage.
Yeah, it's free, y'all. Free 99. That's what they
We
say.
love free.
You love free. It's a free program, and there are three components. We're going to have attorneys there. So if you're a small business, you need some information from an attorney, somebody to be there to talk about bankruptcy, expungement, like if you have a criminal record and there's a possibility for you to get that expunged, there are going to be people helping you with that. There's a financial component, which I'm leading. So I'm going to be doing a session on budgeting, trying to get people to fall in love with budgeting. And they're going to be talking about fraud, because fraud is on the increase and it is really impacting our community. And right now, the fraudsters know everything that's going on, and they're using the headlines to get at the people. Are you a federal worker looking for a job? So fake jobs are on the rise. And so we're going to have a panel to sort of help you navigate that, so you don't get the money that you do have stolen by a scammer. We're going to have someone who's two gentlemen going to be talking about, do you want to be a millionaire? Because guess what? There are some people who are going to still be able to do well in this economy.
I love it. There's so much that people can learn. I just want to say, ask a professional, getting your affairs in order. This conference is going to be held in person and virtually. Coming up Saturday, March 29th. It's going to be at the First Baptist Church of Glenarden Worship Center. That's at 600 Watkins Park Drive in Upper Marlboro. Starts at 9:00. As Michelle talked about, experts will be there. We want people to take advantage of all of that. When you say budgeting, for so many of us, it is a scary topic. That's why I said, when you start that emergency fund, tell us the 1, 2, 3. How do you get it started? Budget, living on a budget is so critical, but yet so many people, including myself at times, I fear that word. Yeah. I fear what it means to my life.
Yeah. Because we have such a negative viewpoint of budgeting, and when I talk to people, they say, well, it's so limiting. It's just, I don't want to know the numbers. They're so scary. But into that, I would say, how is not knowing working for you? And so I love budgeting. I actually joke, I love it as much as I love my husband.
Yes.
My husband is fine, y'all. And so I tell you, it's like my budget and my boo. They are two things that I love. And so I love working the numbers, and a budget to me is freedom, because it tells you what you can and what you can't do. And I use my budget as the bad guy. When, back in the day when my husband and I were saving to send our kids to college, and we wanted to pay off our house before one of us retired, which we did. My husband retired in 2023. We paid off our home. So when people was like, oh, well, why don't you go on this cruise? Or why don't you go out with us? I was like, girl, my budget do not let me do anything. And so you let the budget be that person to say no if you're not capable of saying no. But that
instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses and trying to fake it like you're fronting more than what you can.
Right.
I want to talk about building financial resilience for these unexpected challenges. I guess that's a better way of not using budgeting, right? That word, and talk about just, we're building on financial resilience during these tough times. We really have to do that, because we can make a comeback. We've been through down times before, and we can make a comeback. Speak to that a little bit.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I know there are a lot of people who are wondering what is going to happen to me. They've lost their job, or they're so fearful. And this too shall pass. Now, that sounds a little trite in the moment, but the fact of the matter is that we have recovered from so much. I mean, the Great Recession took so many people down, and yet from those ashes arose a stronger people. We hopefully learned some lessons from the Great Recession that we are now going to be using in this period of time. And so don't try to do it alone, because there's so much help, which is what the Ask the Pro is. We're also going to be trying to help people do their wills and get their estate in order. If you're listening right now and you don't have a will, shame on you, because especially if you have underage children and you are a caregiver for folks, you ought to have your affairs in order. And
don't wait until you're up of advanced age to do it. You have to do it as soon as you kick out that baby. Get it done. Get it done, especially because you want to make sure that in the event something happens to you, your child is taken care of. In these tough financial times, what are you telling people if they want to tap into their 401k, retirement? or their life insurance, that kind of thing, to get them through these hard financial times. What's the advice there?
Use it as a last resort. And I mean a last resort. I mean, they are about to come put your furniture on the sidewalk kind of resort. Because the problem is that when you go to that first, it's not going to be there when you need it for retirement. But I get it, right? If you've lost your job and you've been diligently looking and you can't find anything, and that is the only pot of money, and it is going to keep that roof over your head and food on the table, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. But folks, make sure that it is the last possible option for you, because I need that money to stay there to grow, because you're gonna need it in retirement. And I get it. I mean, listen, I did not always, I didn't come from money. I know what it's like to be hungry. I'm not telling you anything that I haven't gone through myself. So I would like you to try to keep that money there until you just don't have any other choice.
How can people take advantage of cryptocurrencies as part of their portfolio options as you're building on your financial resilience? What are your thoughts there? Because we've heard
you might as well go to Las Vegas and put some money down on the blackjack table. That's what I think about crypto. I mean, really? It's gambling. And most people don't even know what's in their 401k. They don't even understand how a 401k works. So you're going to try to get into something called crypto that you have no idea. And you know what? It's too late. It's already at the high. You're going to be buying at the high. It works for those. I'm just going to be candid. If I can.
Be candid. That's why you're here.
It's going to work for those white people that bought it 10 years ago, because now they need all of you all fools to buy it so they can profit and become millionaires. Because right now it's too late, and it doesn't produce anything. It's mostly used by criminals. And I know what people say, oh, well, it's a way for Black people to earn more money. No, it's a way for people who got in it 10, 20 years ago to be rich, to make you look like you're the fool, because then you got to try to sell it for $100,000 or some craziness like that. I am not a believer in it. If you have an abundance of money, you have saved for your retirement, you have saved to send your kids to college debt free, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a car payment, you don't have credit card debt, then maybe you could buy a teeny bit, less than 5% of your portfolio. But if you can't tick all those other things off, to me, you should not be in crypto at all.
Wow. In terms of 1, 2, 3, the biggest scams that are out there, I mean, during these times, tumultuous times, that's when the scammers really come hard at folks, especially when they are so vulnerable. What are you seeing?
So one of the top scams right now, and I just wrote about it in my Washington Post column. So if you go to WashingtonPost.com and look up fake jobs, that is one of the top scams, according to the Federal Trade Commission. So basically they reach out to you and they offer you a job, and they might say, oh, you have to pay for some expensive training or some equipment. They might send you a check and they say, why don't you cash it? Oh my goodness, we sent you too much. Can you send some money back? Scam, scam, scam. So be very careful as you're looking for a job, as you're posting your resume on these sites. The scammers are there trying to take your money from you. Another top scam is the government imposter scam. So right now we're hearing a lot about Elon Musk and Doge and things like that. And so people are saying, oh, I can help you with this. And they pretend to be from the Social Security Administration or the FBI. I did a 7-part series for the Post called Scammed, where this Maryland woman lost all of her retirement.
Oh my goodness. Well, we don't want people to fall into scams. That's why they need to come out to Ask a Professional. Getting Your Affairs in Order conference coming up on Saturday. It is free, held in person and virtually on Saturday, March 29th. Jot that down, 9 a.m. at the First Baptist Church of Glen Arden Worship Center. And the location is 600 Watkins Park Drive. That's in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. So those folks who are listening from far away, you can tap into all of the expert who will be on hand, and there are workshops and
Right.
so much information that we just really cannot leave on the table because
Yeah.
this is so very important.
And we do
Michelle
encourage
Singletary,
people to register so we know how
that
many
was my
people
next
are
question.
coming. Yeah.
You do want people to register.
We do. Then you can come and register on site. So if you don't register beforehand, that's fine. But you just go to the website, First Baptist Church of Glenarden's website. There will be a page where you can register for the conference, or you can just show up and register on site.
And so for those virtually who are tapping in, should they register as well?
Yes,
How does that
they
work?
should register so they can get the link to access the workshops.
Okay. I only have like 10 seconds. That's 10 seconds. What is the best piece of advice that you would give someone right now, today, in terms of financial decision making?
Budget, get out of debt. And if you are suffering right now, seek mental health professional to help you with that.
All right, Michelle Singletary, that's why we always come to you, because you have all of the information from a practical standpoint to the heart, to the spirit, mind, body, soul. Michelle Singletary, nationally syndicated personal finance columnist with the Washington Post. We thank you for your expertise this evening. You've been wonderful. A lot of advice to take in, a lot of
Yeah.
information.
Thank you for having me. I'm such a pleasure.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Daily Drum for this Tuesday, March 25th. I'm Alec Green, in for the vacationing Harold Fisher. Up next, 96.3 WHUR comes the original Quiet Storm with the Love King himself, Raheem Devon. I am happy to sit in tomorrow night as well for Harold. We'll talk about something else fantastic in the community. Have a great evening.